Okay, so yeah, hi everyone, and welcome to the spring kickoff of the 2024 volunteer season. This afternoon, we're going to share a little bit about sort of the core focus areas of work for the Berkshire Natural Resources Council. Our staff are going to do a bit of a deeper dive into the volunteer program itself and preview some of the stewardship team work days that will start in April, so coming up soon. And we'll also have the chance to hear from a few longtime volunteers and their personal experience. And we do have time for questions at the end, so definitely please keep those in mind as you go through the presentation. And if you have any point of needing like a clarification of something we're presenting, feel free to, virtually raise your hand, and we can call on you and do that clarification. So yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. So I wanted to start off just introducing the community program staff that are on the call. I'm Mariah Fogg, the Community Conservation Manager at BNRC. Been here just about 8 years now, and participating and engaging with volunteers is absolutely one of my favorite things about this work. I'll pass it over to Charlotte and then over to you, Mackenzie.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlotte Hood. I'm BNRC's Volunteer and Outreach Coordinator. So I'll be meeting and seeing a lot of you this summer on work days, and I'm just really excited for the start of spring and to be getting outside more in the coming months. I'll pass it to you, Mackenzie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mackenzie Greer. I'm the Director of Community Programs. I've been with BNRC close to 10 years now, and I am so happy to see some familiar faces and some new faces. And I also do a little bit some work in our conservation department and our sort of enhanced farm and agriculture program. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to share any information I have.
Awesome, thank you. We'd like to take the time to have all of you introduce yourselves as well. To make it easier, I think I'll just go through and call folks as I see you on the screen. And I'd love to hear, your name, maybe what town you're coming from, and if you have a favorite sign of spring or something you're looking forward to about spring, might be fun to hear that too. Susan, can I put you on the spot? You're first on my screen. Let's see. Oh, and you're muted.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Labordes, and I'm from Pittsfield. My favorite sign of spring, I think, is seeing some crocus and other spring flowers start to, poke their heads up and give us hope.
Thank you so much. Melanie? I think your audio might be a little muffled. I don't know if it's just that way for me or if everyone's.
I can't hear Melanie either.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. I think
That was a little bit better.
I just moved something. Melanie and John, my husband, from Savoy, and my favorite sign of spring are those ephemerals that Charlotte taught us all about last year.
Awesome. So I'll just clarify for those who maybe couldn't hear, Melanie and John are from Savoy, and favorite part of spring are spring ephemeral wildflowers. Yay. Emerging soon. Thank you so much. Next, I have Michael. Looks like Michael's joining by phone, so it might be a little bit more challenging. Peter, how about we go to you, and then I'll come back to Michael towards the end.
Sure thing. My name's Peter. I'm from Monterey. Favorite sign of spring is the daffodils are starting to poke up.
I'll now go on to you, Linda Geffen, if I'm saying your last name correct.
You are. Linda Geffen. I'm in Lee, and I think I like everything about spring. I love that last week my daffodils popped up and then they got covered in the snow and they're back and they look none the worse for the wear. So I like the weather. I think it's just all the 4 seasons, probably spring is the nicest renewal time.
I completely agree. Love the spring. All right, we'll go on to you, Bob Johnson, one of our longtime volunteers. And you're muted right now.
Can you hear me now? Okay, Bob Johnson, I live in Lee, and my favorite sign of spring is the return of the spring birds to my bird feeder. And they're starting to appear, and that tells me too, I have to take the feeder in at night because now the bears will be out. You get one with the other.
I know, it's always so disappointing. You want both. All right, we're gonna go on to Tim and Rosemary now, also longtime volunteers, trail stewards, and involved in lots of ways with BNRC.
Okay, so Tim O'Brien, and
Rosemary.
from Stockbridge. Favorite sign of spring? What do you think?
The smiles on everyone's faces on those first warm days.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's hunkered down in the winter, walking around town, not so many faces, but on a day like today, everybody's out, and it's nice to see everybody after a long winter.
Yeah, people are out of hibernation. All right, we'll go to you, Martha Page.
Hey, hello, everybody. Martha Page. I'm in South Lee, up in the Beartown State Forest. And right up the street from me is a patch of bloodroot. And when the bloodroot starts to bloom, it feels like for sure spring. And, you know, usually it doesn't happen until the beginning of April, but yeah, gotta know with this weather, we'll just see.
Thanks, Martha. Ginny, you're up next.
I'm Jenny Akabane from Lennox, and a lot of my favorite signs of spring have already been mentioned. So I'll say that my next favorite sign of spring is getting out the bicycle and the canoe.
Thanks, Ginny. Also, an awesome volunteer, has been with us at BNRC for a very long time. Okay, who have we not gone to yet? We have a Bob B.
Hi, I'm Bob Beasley. Both my wife Jill and I volunteer. We live in West Stockbridge, and our favorite sign of spring is our entire lawn erupts in small little blue flowers. And they should be coming up any day now, to tell you the truth. So it's the first sign of spring that we get here at our property.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, we're gonna go to Gunnar next.
Hi, yeah, I'm Gunnar. I live in New Lebanon. When I went for a run today, it was the first time in a long time I could do it in a t-shirt without a bunch of gear on, so that was pretty cool.
I had the same experience running today. I was like, oh, my arms can feel the sunshine. Okay, let's see, last few people. I've kind of lost track. Kathleen, why don't we go to you?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Smolinski. I commute from Albany, New York. I actually work for BNRC. I'm the Assistant Director of Fundraising. And my favorite sign of spring, other than ones that have already been mentioned, is probably starting my jalapeno seeds and starting to imagine what my flower beds are going to look like for the year.
Awesome, thanks, Kathleen. And then I think lastly, unless I called you already, Mark, have you gone?
I have not gone.
Okay.
I'm Mark Lidikin. I'm from Kinderhook, and my favorite sign of spring is days when the temperature is warm enough that I do not have to put anything on over a shirt.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everyone. It was great to see old and new faces. I love spring, so love talking about it. I will pass it back off to you, Mariah.
Thank you, and thanks for taking care of while my tech issues were going on. Sorry about that. All right, so we'll move on to the next slide. Great. So I think a lot of you are familiar with the Berkshire Natural Resources Council, but for those that might be unfamiliar or less familiar, we just want to share a little bit about the work that BNRC does that volunteers are heavily involved in as well. So BNRC is a land trust, a regional land trust, actively working throughout Berkshire County on land conservation, land stewardship, and community engagement. So I'm going to share a little bit more about each of those focus areas. For land conservation, in total, BNRC has helped to conserve over 25,000 acres in the county. This is reflected in about 12,600 acres under conservation restrictions, which are also known as conservation easements in every other state other than Massachusetts. They're basically legal agreements with private landowners to permanently conserve parts of their land. So that's one avenue of land conservation efforts. BNRC has also partnered with landowners to establish about 307 acres of agricultural preservation restrictions in an effort to protect farmland, and as well as 12,600 acres owned and cared for by BNRC as an organization. And these are the reserves that you're all probably familiar with: Hoosick Range, Olivia's Overlook at Yukon Ridge South, Clam River, that sort of thing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And we also want to note the importance that partnerships play in conservation efforts. So those partnerships are local land trusts, municipalities, state agencies, Stockbridge Muncie community, among many others. And Mackenzie, I'll just invite you, since you are actively engaged in the conservation field, to just share anything that maybe I missed, or anything you'd like to highlight before I move on to land stewardship.
No, I apologize. My camera keeps flipping on and off. No, I think you covered it really well. The process of the conservation restriction is very complicated. So if anyone is particularly interested in that, we're always happy to talk more about it. It is a big part of the way that we do work, and we have tools that create a permanent conservation agreement that can be for forest land, for agricultural land, and other types of open spaces. And it's a really neat way that we can work with the private landowners who want to retain their ownership of their land, but see that it is conserved in perpetuity.
Thank you. And so we'll move on to land conservation, or I'm sorry, land stewardship. And those efforts are really reflected in the long-term care and responsibility for the lands that BNRC has protected. They're protected in perpetuity, so forever. So that's a long time to care for things. The conservation restriction stewardship really involves annual monitoring and maintaining boundaries just to make sure that the terms of the restriction are honored. Again, we can always dive into more information about this, but kind of wanted to give you just an overview. Management of reserves is another big piece, and that can really look like habitat restoration in particular, and ongoing annual management, as well as the recreational trail maintenance, improvement, and creation, which encompasses about 60 plus miles of trails throughout Berkshire County, all free and open to the public to non-motorized recreational use. And volunteers heavily support this piece of land stewardship efforts, as you'll hear more about as we go on. So the other focus area I just wanted to touch on is community engagement. BNRC's community engagement efforts really focus on removing barriers to accessing the outdoors and really trying to connect people to nature through a variety of different ways. We do have a focus on beginner-friendly and accessible trail resources, Spanish language access initiatives, educational programs both for adults and children, and numerous partnerships with community-based organizations, as well as offering volunteer opportunities. Another opportunity or important area that we wanted to really highlight for you today are the program values. So over the years, as community engagement initiatives have grown, we really wanted to have sort of a strong foundation to build off of, and these values are kind of reflective of that, and something we sort of seek buy-in from our volunteers as well. So that includes fostering an ethic of inclusion and belonging for people of all abilities and backgrounds, showing respect for plants and animals, and also anyone that you may engage with along the trail or otherwise in your time with BNRC, volunteers, hikers, that sort of thing. Prioritizing safety above all else, very, very important. We include a good safety talk before each of our work days, and really encouraging lifelong learning. That's what it's all about. We all enjoy having fun and learning from each other together. So yeah, next slide. Thanks so much. So before passing it over to Charlotte, I just want to take the time to make sure that we are acknowledging that this land and all of the present day Berkshires are the ancestral homeland of the Mohican people who were forcibly displaced to Wisconsin by European colonization. And these lands continue to be of great significance to the Stockbridge-Munsee Mohican people. There are numerous ways to engage and learn and continue to deepen your connection to these lands, and through the leadership of the Stockbridge-Munsee community. So we'll send some of those resources in the follow-up email as well. And I'll pass it over to Charlotte.
Thanks, Mariah. Let's see. Okay, so now I'll talk about, what we're here for tonight, the volunteer program. And this just lists some of the primary roles that volunteers play at BNRC. And I'm going to jump into the nuts and bolts of each of these roles so that you can get an understanding of how you might want to be involved in volunteer efforts going forward. We'll start with the stewardship team. Our goal for stewardship workdays, that's mostly what the stewardship team consists of, stewardship workdays, is to provide a wide range of opportunities for volunteers to work on meaningful projects that benefit the stewardship team, the stewardship department, and the efforts on BNRC reserves. So we offer generally about 3 workdays a month from April to November. The workday list is generated seasonally and sent to your inbox with links to sign up via the online portal that you're all a part of. So with April just around the corner, keep an eye out for those spring work days in your inbox just next week. So some highlights include sign installation at the Boulders. The Boulders, if you've never been there before, is a wonderful reserve in the heart of Pittsfield. And we have a lot of signs that need updating there. So that's an exciting project coming up. It'll be a series of work days building on one another. And then 3 Mile Hill is a BNRC reserve in Great Barrington. It's right next to the Community Health Programs Center and the Berkshire South Community Center. And the bog bridging there needs some updating. So bog bridging goes over muddy parts of the trail, important for keeping your shoes clean. And we'll be having work days on a regular basis throughout the season that work on these efforts. And then some more regular perennial projects include habitat restoration. That will mostly be focused at the Boulders Reserve again, and also Stevens Glen, which is in Lenox. And then we also have our corridor clearing. That's basically just clearing the trails of any obstruction, and water bar maintenance to keep the trail nice and dry. So trail stewards, that's another role that volunteers play at BNRC. They're really the eyes and ears on the trails. They play a huge role in making our trails pleasant, enjoyable, and free of, down trees and whatnot. So stewards will walk the trail or trails that we choose together to suit BNRC's needs and the volunteers' preferences. And we'll walk the trails about every 6 weeks and report back on trail conditions, as well as performing light maintenance tasks along the way, such as taking, small trees off the trail that may have come down with wind, or stalking maps at the trailheads. Our goal is to have 2 to 3 trail stewards per reserve, with signed, each reserve that has trails that are signed. So not all of our property, but the properties with trails. And they will, submit trail reports about every 6 weeks. We provide training and tools for our trail stewards. And I think that's it. I will say that we have some reserves that are currently in need of a dedicated trail steward. So keep that in mind as you consider how you might want to be involved in BNRC's efforts. Trail helpers, another role, trail helpers support BNRC staff to ensure the safety of a hike or a work day. And this opportunity is available to those who have already volunteered their time as a trail steward for at least a year. It also requires volunteers to be first aid trained, and BNRC provides that training. The goal of this position is really to increase emergency preparedness and just the overall safety and effectiveness of our programs at BNRC. So shifting gears to inside, our office volunteers, this is a year-round position and helps various departments at BNRC depending on their needs. So some examples include map bundling, calls to donors, organizing files, and just other needs as they arise. So the community science program at BNRC kind of stands on its own in that it has an emphasis on education and broader civic engagement, but folks are still volunteering their time on a BNRC reserve. The primary community science program that we participate in at BNRC is a nest monitoring program called Nest Watch. It's led by Cornell's Lab of Ornithology and supported by community members like yourself. Participating is really fun and anyone can do it, even children, so you can bring the whole family. And this season in 2024 will be our first year collecting data at the Thomas and Palmer Reserve in Great Barrington. We had a volunteer workday last year where people came in to help build more nest boxes and then install them at Thomas and Palmer. So the program has expanded, meaning that we can engage more volunteers and there's more of a need. So there are 2 trainings coming up in April. One will be at Hollow Fields and the other at Thomas and Palmer. And what this position involves is really just checking on nest boxes about 1 to 2 times a week over the span of a nesting attempt, which is typically 6 weeks at some point in between April and July. This is just an exciting opportunity to contribute meaningful data to a real science. Researchers will use this data for various purposes, and is an exciting way to just get an intimate window into the reproductive biology of nesting birds. All right. Well, that's enough of me talking. So I'll pass the mic over to our three longtime volunteers that have joined us tonight to shed some more light on what it's like to volunteer with BNRC. And then, as Mariah said, we'll have a dedicated session for questions after that. So we're going to start with Peter Grealish.
Hello. I've been volunteering for a couple of years now. Some trail maintenance, painting blazes, replacing trail signs, removing invasive species. I also do the outbound phone calls to recent donors, and it's it's a pretty straightforward, easy thing to do, and I think that people like to be appreciated, and we're not asking for money or additional contributions. It's just thank you very much for for your generosity, and hope that you continue. Why volunteer? I identify with the mission statement, protect and preserve the natural beauty and ecological integrity of the Berkshires for public benefit and enjoyment, and I think that really means a lot. BNRC, that work with the forest, the land trusts, farmland, promoting and protecting farmland. One of the things that I really like is the robust outreach to the Spanish-speaking community. Maps are printed in Spanish. Hikes are led by Spanish speakers. Social media is targeted to the Latina, Hispanic, and Spanish speakers. Even the website has a Spanish option. So it's I think that it's important to reach out and include all in the in the beautiful nature that we have. BNRC, it's my understanding that they're the only major environmental organization that is actually located in the Berkshires. Trustees of the reservation, they're in Boston. Nature Conservatives in Virginia. Sierra Clubs in California. BNRC, Lenox, Massachusetts. It kind of goes to the old adage of think globally but act locally. So it's that's what I like. When you speak with BNRC people, they always have a favorite trail. It's almost like an icebreaker. And I guess my favorite trail is Clam River down in Sandersfield. Has wonderful cellar hole. The river is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of variety in terms of the topography and plants, and it's easy parking, and it's a great place to hike and to visit, and everyone should see it when they have an opportunity. So, great organization, great people, and a great mission. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Peter. And this is a picture of Clam River down at the bottom, just for those of you who haven't been there, a little taste of it. We're going to go on to David Dutra, another longtime volunteer. If I can get to his slide.
Thank you.
There we go.
I've been a BNRC volunteer now for about 6 years. I had admired BNRC's mission for a long time before that, but after I retired, I wanted to see if I could help to promote that mission to the extent that I could. And right around that time, I got an email from Mariah looking for volunteers, and I responded, and I was off and running. I've been in the 6 years, I've had the opportunity to participate in a wide range of activities. The one that has remained constant has been stewarding two trails. Burbank Trail, which has become my favorite trail. Just because it's beautiful, and there's something about after you've been on a trail so many times and knowing pretty nearly every stick and stone and turn in such a beautiful place. The other is a section of the high road between Old Bald Head Road, Trailhead, and Reservoir Road. Had the opportunity to do a lot of different kinds of trail work, from helping to build new trail. I remember working at Mahana Cobble before that was open. The new portion of the Green Trail at the Boulders. Also helping to maintain existing trails. That can entail such things as cleaning out water bars, installing water bars and other drainage features, corridor clearing, blazing and reblazing trails. One thing that I have noticed, and I started noticing that as soon as I started working with BNRC, is that once you work on trails and maintain trails, you'll never look at the trails the same way again. It really was amazing to me just how much effort it takes to make a trail look like it's been there forever. As was mentioned before, we built and installed bluebird houses. I've been a trail helper, and another interesting opportunity 5 years ago, BNRC was looking to scope out potential trails that might one day be part of the High Road project, and that became an interesting thing to do in the spring of 2018 or 2019, one of those years. In any event, I have enjoyed meeting and getting to know the staff and also all of the volunteers. It's been a great experience. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Charlotte.
Thank you, David. Okay, I will pass it on to Susan Laportas now.
Great. Hi, everybody. I've just been sitting here thinking so much about all the volunteers who have come before me, and some who are volunteers of very long standing who are on this call today. So I'm actually kind of humbled to have been asked to talk. I've been a volunteer since 2021. And what brought me to BNRC in the first place? I was asked to answer that question. I've always been an avid hiker, and I'd much rather be outdoors than indoors. And I hiked a lot of the BNRC trails before I really developed a deep appreciation for what BNRC was and the work that they have done in the Berkshires. And, Mariah went over some of the statistics at the outset of this call, but when you think about it and think about, more than 40 years of work conserving what is really the very best of the Berkshires, and then building on that to increase accessibility for so many people. I mean, I can't say enough about BNRC. Why am I volunteering here? Well, in addition to all the great work and wanting to support it, I think anybody who's volunteered knows that you receive much more than you give whenever you volunteer. And I have learned so much in my work at BNRC. David just mentioned, looking at trails through new eyes once you've become educated as to what it takes to really construct a sustainable trail. That's been very eye-opening for me. And it's really helped my work as a trail steward. So I steward part of the high road, and there have been some times when, as you can see in the slide here, when you submit a trail report, I like to illustrate it with some pictures. So the befores and the afters, so the staff knows exactly, what was done on any given trail, clearing, making sure it's really walkable for everybody. I've also been really grateful to be able to participate in things like first aid training and CPR refreshers. I think that's really critical for anybody to know, but it's also enabled me to join in some of the other events in support of BNRC as a trail helper. So we have great staff who are leading all of these events, and sometimes it's nice to have somebody with additional first aid experience, kind of sweeping and helping out on the end. So that's been wonderful. I've also had just so much fun meeting everybody who's volunteered and the staff at BNRC. We have a blast on our work days. And I was asked to offer a tip to anybody who's thinking about participating in a work day. And my tip is this: wear your oldest clothes. So clothes that you don't mind getting paint on, getting snagged on brambles, getting muddy, and just be prepared to have a great time. One of my favorite projects was building the bridge supports and installing the new bridge at Wild Acres that was developed in partnership with the city of Pittsfield. So BNRC discovered that, the bridge there had degraded to the point where you really couldn't use it anymore, and volunteered the labor if the city would buy the materials. So a lot of us got together in the basement, put together these outstandingly heavy bridge supports, and then had a couple of work days to install it, which has been really quite, it was a memorable project in my mind. And the other thing is, BNRC gives you a chance to be you. So if you have special skills and talents that you'd like to share with BNRC, they will find a way to make it work. In my past life, I was a professional communicator, and so they asked if I would be interested in writing a couple of blogs for their website and the newsletters, and that was really great for me to be able to help in that way and utilize my past a little bit. Thinking about some of the favorites, trails, I have so many, but I do like Mahana Cobble, because when you get to the lookout, there are no man-made structures anywhere within your viewscape. So with that, I guess I'll just say thanks again to the staff for giving us the opportunity to work with you and to support really an outstanding organization.
Thank you, Susan. That was lovely. I will pass the mic off to Mariah now, if I can get the slides to work.
I think, yeah, it's a good segue for just one quick mention, because we just want to turn it right back around and say thank you to the volunteers, and the fact that, we are celebrating and thankful for volunteer support year round, and really, could not do what we do without volunteer support. But we do have a very intentional volunteer appreciation event every year to kind of wrap up the field season, and that takes place in early November. So just want to put that on your calendar right now, and looking forward to a full season, and then, yeah, able to wrap up and celebrate then. I think at this time we'll just transition into the question section. I think if it's helpful, we could leave the slide up or just make it to where we can see everyone's faces. Since it's pretty casual and a smaller group of folks, you can either raise your virtual hand or just unmute yourself and ask a question if you have one. The questions could be directed towards volunteers, staff, each other, anything goes. So we have a few in that we've drafted as well. So we'll see if anyone has one to start us off.
So I have a question actually for Mackenzie. Related to land conservation. How would someone engage with BNRC if they were interested in conserving land and utilizing BNRC's resources to help them do that?
Yeah, it's best to first contact someone in our conservation department. You could really contact any staff member. Folks' contact information is listed on our website. If they were talking to a volunteer, you could connect, you could provide us direct information and we could get in touch with them. It could happen a number of ways. What we do right now, I'll just give you a brief overview. If someone is particularly interested in conserving land, we have a newer staff member who is named Johnny Robinson, and he is sort of getting his conservation legs under him and has a lot of skills, and he's coming from he keeps shifting. Sorry, I don't know why it's doing this. Goodness. Okay, I'm just going to keep this off for now if you can hear me. He does an intake process. So he'll speak with a landowner, learn what their interests are, where the land is located, and start to do a bit of an assessment of, is this a good fit for BNRC? Is it a fit more for one of our partners, which could be a state agency or a different land trust, or someone like a Mass Autobahn, a state agency, or a state organization, and have a conversation as well with that landowner. And so it just sort of goes through this process of, is it a good fit for BNRC? If it is, let's learn a bit more about it. Let's start a conversation with that landowner, find out more about their goals and how that particular land fits in with other priorities for the organization. So the biggest thing is just to connect them with a staff member. And hi, David, we see you now. And, sort of making that direct person-to-person connection. So ideally with one of our conservation staff, and I can put a link into the chat in a moment. And alternatively, you could, if you're a volunteer and you're talking with someone, you could just sort of get enough information, relay it to Mariah or Charlotte, and they could forward it to one of us too. So a few different ways.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
Sure.
Hey, Melanie, yeah, go ahead.
To conservation, is there a minimum lot size that you would consider?
I heard the question as, if for conservation, is there a minimum lot size? And I would say it sort of depends on the location. It's sort of a big, it depends, as you can probably imagine. Again, it's, a lot of it is the location. What does it look like? Is it actually something that is, one, does it have ecological value? Does it have, or is it like, say, if it's farmland, does it have, potential to be conserved as farmland? A smaller lot adjacent to a bigger conserved parcel might be a good fit. A small lot sort of in the middle as sort of an island without any conserved land around it, and let's say you're in a kind of a developed area, it's not really going to be likely to be a good fit. So one main strategy we use is to build out and make bigger reserves of conserved land. The bigger the reserve, the sort of greater chance we have at being able to have that property really provide strong benefit for conservation. It's a good question. I'm sorry, I hate the "it depends" answer, but there's a lot of factors. But we have a lot of information that we can access pretty darn quickly, like with our computers, that allow us to, at a glance, see, is this something that's like clearly not a fit, definitely a fit, or it's somewhere in the middle. Probably more things end up a little bit more toward the middle.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good question. Any other questions? Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. I've read that Tomball Mountain, access to that is going to open up. I believe there's maybe a new parking area, and I was just wondering whether, I'm assuming if it's opening at some point this year that, you know, trail clearing has begun. Are there going to be volunteer opportunities at Tomball Mountain in the trails leading to it?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'll do my best to answer. And Mackenzie and Charlotte, feel free to chime in. I know that some of that work is definitely moving forward this year. We have it's always tricky when there's trail planning and construction happening, but it's like tentative, like maybe these 2 weeks or maybe these 2 weeks, and as well as in combination with perhaps BNRC's trail crew or bringing in a contracted trail crew like Green Acres or something more professional. So there's a balance that we have to reach of capacity wise, is there a need and does it line up with other schedules? But I do know that a number of the trail crew projects are kind of placeholders right now where we're considering, you know, the team lead on that particular project is considering where volunteers could be involved. We know that's an area where volunteers really like to be involved. So it's something we're going to try to prioritize. But yeah, just stay tuned and feel free to follow up about that.
Terrific. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not a question, but more a state, or I'd like to add something on to what Susan said about wearing old clothes. Go out and get the best gloves you can.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be doing trail work, because the thorns on those Japanese barberry, they're small, but boy, they sting. So
Really good point, Peter. Yeah, we do have gloves that we offer volunteers, but I would guess if you brought your own, they might be of better quality and protect your hands a little bit more. Yeah, thank you for that. I know there was one summer where just about every piece of my clothing was covered in blue blaze paint, just because I'm not as careful as other folks. I have a question. I'd be curious because I know we have, you know, a number of longer time volunteers on here. And just so you know, Mackenzie put some great information into the chat for you folks. We'll share it in a follow-up email as well. But I was curious if anyone would like to share perhaps a challenge that they had to overcome on a work day, or even in your, you know, your trail stewardship out on your own. That's kind of on the spot.
I was terrified of power drills until the project to create the bridge supports. But from a lot of cheerleading on the side, David Dutra and some others, really learned that it's not that scary. And you know, if you get things lined up and really give it a good push, you can go through Black Locust.
The toughest
And a lot of
all
us
the
are
way.
trained in first aid anyway, Susan, so.
Right.
Awesome. Anyone else want to comment on a challenge they've been able to overcome or encountered? I think similarly to Susan, I can just share, even as a lead, sometimes it just the cheerleading, I guess, is yeah, it's a very supportive environment. So even if you're kind of new to something, there's always going to be folks there supporting you and not pressuring you to do anything outside of your comfort zone. Any other questions? Organic questions? I have a couple others we could ask.
Any comments too, just general impressions or things that you're looking forward to or hope to see us offer recommendations?
I'm curious if we were ready to wrap this up, if folks who didn't share earlier have a favorite trail, BNRC trail or otherwise, since it's our, our icebreaker, as you said, Peter. If folks want to share, yeah, one of their favorite trails, I'd love to hear it. Just sort of popcorn it off if you have something you want to share.
For you.
I'll chime in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're trail stewards for Hoosick Ridge, Hoosick Trail there. And I've been hiking to that peak for pretty much all my life, but from a different side. And there was an opportunity with BNRC to look at geology on that trail a little over a year ago. And so we had explored the other side, but we ended up going up to that side with the geologist. And he, I don't know, it was so inspiring that we ended up being trail stewards with him on that trail because you guys were looking for someone on that. And we have the best conversations now going up that trail with Mark because he's very enlightening to all the rocks and whatnot. And it's interesting to see, the other side that I've, DCR knows the other side. And sometimes, it's a circle or we go up one side, and it's just fun. It's fun to see, learn about the rocks and the new trail, new to us, but same people.
Yeah.
And we had done maintenance on the other side on occasion that where it needed it. So it's nice to have like this steady gig now where we're responsible for this new side. Oh, it's fun. Especially when there are big trees down, it's like clearing them out of the way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have no doubt that that's been something you've been having to do the past few months with all the wind. Yeah, it's so interesting. I like that you mentioned just you've been visiting there and then went with Mark, the geologist, and just saw it all in a new light. It's just so great to, as you develop those deeper relationships with the natural world, you can just, catch on to different things and see things differently. And yeah, I always feel like when you do an out and back trail, it always looks different on the way back. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Any other comments? Favorite trails folks want to mention? I see Michael. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself initially. I'm a new kid to the block here. I'm currently living up in Williamstown, but moving to Sheffield in April. So I've been doing most of my work and hiking up here in the Northern Berkshires, where there's a great trail called Shepherd's Well right off Route 2. If you've never been there, it's a really wonderful little hike. But looking forward to get involved with BNRC. And I did have one question, Mariah, about Susan had mentioned the materials for the bridge. How does BNRC acquire the materials that you need for doing the trail work? Are there grants? Do companies donate things? How does that all happen?
Yeah, so that particular project was a little different than our traditional route. We had partnered with the city of Pittsfield who were, I guess we actually acquired the materials, and I know we work locally with I'm going to blank on the name of the business. Will Conklin, who's the executive director of Green Acres, has a timber supply company. I'm forgetting the name of his business, where you can, so he sources sawmill. That's what I'm trying to think of. So we get a lot of our materials for, larger construction projects through Will's company. And I think other local, this is definitely a better question for our stewardship team, but a lot of like Dettingers and what local wood providers, for lack of a better term, is where we get a lot of our materials. In terms of paying for it, I think it depends project by project, and I'll probably look to Mackenzie to fill in this a little bit more, but some trail projects are grant funded, and so that would be how those are getting funded. Others are probably funded by private donors and that sort of thing. Mackenzie, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
I think you really covered it. Yeah, like in that case, the city of Pittsfield paid for the materials, and we provided the technical assistance, and then our awesome volunteers provided a lot of muscle and energy and great experience. So it, like you said, it's like project to project. So there are some grants, yes, where we incorporate the cost of materials into the grant budget. Some of those do require a match. So the grant might pay for 80%. But then BNRC is required to pay for the other 20%. So an awful lot does depend on giving by donors and the support of private donors. And that, you know, we have an annual budget and we sort of work through the different project needs that way. And it's really a cool thing to see how we're able to balance sort of, you know, ensuring that we have the capacity to keep turning on the lights while doing projects like that. And it really does work out largely because we have really great supporters who keep BNRC in a place where we can really show to grant funders, like we have stability, we have the ability to execute these projects. The other thing is, you know, some of these things that are grant funded, we have to pay and then we seek reimbursement. So there's sort of a cash flow process too, where it is important that we have, you know, enough essentially unrestricted giving that we can use that temporarily, and then that gets reimbursed. So they're great. These are great questions. I appreciate how everyone's really thinking about these kind of inner workings of these projects. And I don't think I have anything else really to add to that piece of it. But
yeah, I'll share that we on occasion have used local resources like, you know, hemlock trees nearby. I think all of the bridge stringers at the boulders were locally sourced hemlock that were cut there, you know, permitting was received, and then they were cut, and then volunteers were able to debark, and then we use those. So it's always kind of a treat when we're able to do that, but it's not always the case. Yeah, I think we're at time. Definitely can answer a few more questions if folks have them. Otherwise, we'll hop off here and be excited to see you in April.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks
Yeah.
all.
Good
Have
seeing
a good
everybody.
evening.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Look forward to the first hike work day.
Yes.
Yeah, hope to see you guys soon.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.